Welcome, everybody. My name's Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshops version of Social Security filing strategies and more. Thanks for attending. We're grateful that you're here. You're here just a little early, but we've got some trivia for you. I just need to do a quick sound check to make sure that you can hear me. Excuse me. So, if you're on one of the main channels, Facebook or YouTube or X or Instagram, anything like that, just use the chat section and just let me know that you can hear me. If you give me a thumbs up, that'll be enough. Or I'm in Pennsylvania tonight. If you want to tell me what state you're in, that's always funny and interesting. We usually get people from all over. So if you could help me out, that would be gratefully appreciated. Just a couple people, and we don't have a ton on here right now. So if you're on, I'm probably talking to you. Again, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or X, just give me a heads up that you can hear me. Thanks, William. Appreciate it. Looks like you're on YouTube. Anybody from X or from Facebook, that would be gratefully appreciated as well. And again, I'm in Pennsylvania. If you want to tell me what state you're in, I always love to see that. Anybody from Facebook? Anybody watching from Facebook? If we can hurry this up, I'll get to some trivia before the top of the hour. It's always fun, and hopefully you can enjoy it. Anybody from Facebook, just give me a heads up. All right, there we go. Thank you so much, Allison. New York City. Wow, that's amazing. All right, California. Wow, thanks. I guess you're both in New York City and on Facebook. Thanks, Allison. All right, let's ask our tech team to pull up the trivia. Let's do some quick, fun trivia, and then at the top of the hour we'll get started. So you can use the chat section of the app just to answer. These are all multiple choice, so you just put A, B, C, or D in there, and we will be good to go. Here we go. All right, first question. Lori from Nebraska. Wow. How are the first three numbers of your Social Security number derived? So everybody has 9 numbers, 3 numbers, 2 numbers, 4 numbers. Those first three, where do they come from? Is it A, zip code of your birth city, B, zip code of the issuing Social Security office, C, they're random, and D, the state where you were born? Hi, Ella from Vero Beach. My wife was born in Titusville, not very far from you at all. So is it A, B, C, or D? A, zip code of your birth city. Just use the chat section to answer. B, zip code of the issuing Social Security office. C, random. No wrong answers here. D, state where you were born. Pick one and throw it in, and we will get through to the next question right away. There's a D. Thanks, Ella. State where you were born. That's always a popular answer. Anybody else? I see a C for random. Interesting. All right. Okay. All right. Let's drum roll, please. What is it? It's B. It actually is representative. Thanks, Allison. Representative of the zip code of the issuing Social Security office. So when you went, I was 14 when I got my Social Security number. Nowadays, kids get them when they are born because you can't take a deduction unless you have a Social Security number these days. Back when I was born, that didn't happen. You got one when you got a job. I got a job at Woolworths washing dishes, which is sort of crazy. And that's when I got it. That zip code of the issuing office is the first 3 numbers of my Social Security. All right, next question. Why have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120 as their Social Security number? Is it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? B, the Social Security machine got stuck and that number just issued out more than 40,000 people? Or C, It was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people. A, B, or C? Take a quick guess, and we've got some more trivia, so bear with me. If we can get through these, we'll get as many as we can before the top of the hour, but let's go fast here. A, B, or C? I see an A. All right, anybody else? It's always so much more fun when you're participating. There's another A. There's another A. There's a C. Interesting. All right. Okay. Let's take a look at the answer. Here we go. Allison, 100% right. It was C. It's a real copy of a Social Security card that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people. So, marketing director is putting together a wallet. You know how they like to put pictures and stuff in and make it look real. Except this guy borrowed his assistant's Social Security number, a Social Security card, wanted to make it look real. Well, it looked really real. The printer just printed it up and put it in there, didn't change the number, didn't put zeros in. And that's what happened. Nobody caught it. All right. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number issued to you? Is it A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers? B, you are experiencing ongoing issues of identity theft? C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life? Or D, all of the above? A, B, C, or D? Just 3 minutes, so let's hurry up. Just throw in your answers and we will get through it. A, B, or C? A, B, C, or D? I see B's. Okay. I see a D. Say another D. Interesting. See a C. No surprise that C. I mean, if your life is in danger, you figure, what? How could you not get a new number there, right? All right. D seem to have it. Let's take a look. It is D. It's all the above. Any of those will get you a new Social Security number from the Social Security Administration. Now, that gets you a new number. You got to convince your employer and your creditors to switch. And that is a chore, believe me. But you can do it. All right. This we're getting close. I don't know if this will be the last one or the next to the last one. But what year was the first Social Security benefit paid? Now, to give you a little bit of a background here, the Social Security law was signed into law in 1935 by President Roosevelt. Was it A, 1936 for $28.17, B, 1937 for 1967, or C, 1940 for $22.54? A, B, or C? What do you think? A, B, or C? See an A. Thanks, Susan. Another A. Ooh, lots of A's. Okay. Any B's or C's? If you're just joining me, bear with me. We're just doing some quick Social Security trivia before the top of the hour in another minute here. There's a B. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's take a look at the answer, guys. It is C, 1940. You might say, why in the world would it be 1940? It's a little bit of a trick question. Because if they signed into law, wouldn't they just start doing it? There's a C, Diana. Thanks. The answer is it's self-funded. Social Security has funded itself since its inception. So, although they put it into law in 1935 and it started collecting money in payroll from FICA in 1935, they had to gather enough money in the Social Security Trust Fund to be able to sustain the payments to the people that were 65 and over already. And that took a while. Took till 1940 before it was able to happen. All right. And let me see. I think that's it. So let's pull up the actual workshop here. I think this is it here. There we go. All right. Thanks for joining me. Let me do a little bit of a more formal introduction. My name is Dave Harden. Um, I'll formally introduce myself in a second. Let me take care of a little bit of housekeeping, and then we will start right away. Um, I'm always asked, frequently asked, how long does this thing take, Dave? We're typically about an hour and 20 minutes, sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower. I'm going to take a quick sip. I am struggling with a little bit of a sore throat tonight, so it might go a little slower, but I don't think much. And uh, uh, here's where you could help us. If you participated in trivia or you didn't, it's really simple. The chat section. If at the end of the workshop tonight, I'm going to do a Q&A, a question and answer period. I will endeavor to answer all of your questions that you ask. The best way to ask them is through chat. Just type in your question. Now, here's how we can speed things up at the end. If I don't do this, what happens is at the end, there's this long pause where people are typing and thinking about what they want to ask. If you know what you want to ask, you can type it in now. You can type it in the middle of the workshop. You can type it at any point that we spur on a question for you that you want a more deliberate, more thought out answer. Specifically, we can do that there. Now, we'll get to those questions at the end, but if you could help us, it'll speed things up as we get to that point. All right, let me get moving here. Again, my name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant at RFC. That's a designation from the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. It's a planning and investment management designation for retirement. I also carry the NSSA designation. That's the National Social Security Advisor designation, the only college accredited designation on Social Security and taxes in the country. I also am the author of the workbook, the one that we've mentioned in the ads that you're going to get a copy of at the end of the day, the end of the workshop. I'll give you instructions on how to get that. You'll get it right away. But I authored that as well. I'm very proud of it. We've printed 150,000 of them over the years. It's been updated just recently, so you should enjoy it. That being said, I am also a fiduciary advisor. I carry a Series 65 that requires me to act for all interactions with clients or people that I'm dealing with in a fiduciary manner. What that means is to act in your best interest, not in my best interest. In fact, even if it is not in my best interest, I'm required to act in your best interest. That's what that means. I am that. I'm very proud of the fact that all of the advisors in my firm are that. I own a registered investment advisory company, an RIA, and it is called City Center Advisors. I own it with my son. We have done incredibly well. We recently celebrated a milestone anniversary. I think we have 1,331 client accounts spread over 43 states. We have offices in several states. We've done incredibly well. We're blessed. But I want to put you at ease. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight. There is nothing on the agenda to talk about stocks or investments or how you should invest in retirement. That's not what we're going to do. We are going to talk about Social Security and taxes, and I want you to know we're going to stick to that. All right. That being said, why are we here? Why is Social Security such a hot topic, such a big deal? Every day last year, 10,000 baby boomers turned 65. This year, it's almost 11,000. This is one of the biggest years that baby boomers were born, and it shows in that number. You think about it, 70,000 people a week, 280,000 a month. Last year, 3.64 million people turned age 65. And that's going to continue for the next 10 or 11 years without repeal. On top of that, even after that, there is a bunch of people eh, more than 10 years from now that are still turning 65. It's just not quite at that milestone of 10,000. So, what else? In addition to that, maybe more interesting, 65% of retired middle income Americans drive more than 50%, more than half of their retirement income from Social Security. It's a huge part of what we do in retirement, of how we survive. It's baked into most of our planning. It's a big deal. You rarely hear somebody say, "Oh, I don't need Social Security." It's important to us, and you paid for it. You paid a huge amount of money for it. Interestingly, since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people. I mean 84,000 corporations. Some of those individual corporations had more than 100,000 employees that one day they had a pension. The next day, the company said, "This is too expensive. We're not going to do this anymore." And then, interestingly, I think really interestingly, 46.1% of Americans currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral. I don't mean the poorest of the poor. I mean, our poverty level in this country is somewhere around 11 or 12%. This is 46. Almost half of us many of the people in this statistic start off retirement with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in things like 401ks and IRAs, but they end up, as my grandfather would have said, dead broke in a terrible place. You know, my grandfather was a huge part of my growing up. My grandmother died when I was 7, and the same year my parents divorced, and he moved in with us, and he had a big part in raising me, and he taught me these idioms, and one of them was being old is hell, but being old and broke is the seventh level of hell. And he understood that you just don't want to be in that position. So how is it that so many of us are ending up there? If this doesn't send a chill down your spine, maybe it should, but more importantly, how in the world does this happen? Because if you don't know that, how do you avoid it? All right. Questions about yourself. Do you insure your home or your car? I'm in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, you don't have a choice. Um, I mean, I guess you don't have to insure your home if it's paid off, but who does that? Well, how about your health? Well, if you're 65 or you're going to be 65 soon and you're thinking about Social Security, you also qualify for Medicare, which is a health insurance program. It's a government sponsored health insurance program, but it's still insurance. How about your retirement? Well, so is Social Security. I always get irritated when people say, "Oh no, that's an entitlement program." No, if you get Social Security when you're young and you work 5 years and you get disabled and it pays you the rest of your life, you are the recipient of an entitlement. But when you pay into it for 40 years, you're not entitled. This isn't an entitlement program. You earned the benefit, you paid for it, and you deserve it. So don't let people tell you that it's an entitlement program. Congress loves to use that term when they're when it suits them. All right, when you're planning your Social Security, one of the things that you have to do is think about how long you're going to live. Well, this is census data. If you're a single male age 65, you have a 50% chance statistically you're living to 85. That probably doesn't surprise anybody. You have a 25% chance of living to 92. If you're a single female age 65, statistics say from the census that you have a 50% chance of living to 88 a 25% chance of living to 94. Now, when I first started in the industry in the late 70s, in 1978, we used to ask people, how long do you think you're going to live? And people would always talk about their parents. Well, you know, in 1935, when Social Security was created, and they set 65 as the full retirement age, the average person in our country lived to age 63. Things have changed a little since then. So when you're thinking about this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how long might I live? You can't look at your parents. You've got to look at statistics, but more importantly, you also have to look realistically at your health. But you cannot, you can't. I've had people over my career say, I don't want to live to be 90. I don't want to live to be 95. But I've seen them through my career as they get to be 94, 95 looks pretty good. It's a very different situation when the reality is pressing in on you. We're just made that way. Now, look at this. If you're a couple age 65, if you're the male in that couple, you have a 50% chance you're living to 92, 7 more years than if you were single. And if you're the female, 50% chance you're living to 97, 5 more years. This is incredible data. Now, why? It's really simple. Two people who love each other, who care about each other, who are concerned about each other, make sure that they're taken care of. It's my wife 6 months ago or so made me go to the dermatologist because she saw something on my back that she didn't like the looks of. Turns out it was fine. It was a mole. But my sister died of skin cancer in 2015. We were those kids that ran out and on the first day of summer and got burned because that was the ritual to get tan. Now I know you're probably thinking, "What an idiot!" But back then, I wasn't the only one doing it. These days, I don't think anybody does. I hope nobody does that. But I pay a price. My sister paid the ultimate price, but I pay a price of absolute vigilance to make sure that nothing's wrong. Well, that's the benefit of the couple is that if they hear a rattle in your chest or something's not right with your breathing or your gait looks off or your balance looks off, they get you to the doctor, and that makes a huge difference in how long we survive and thrive. This is Ethel Carterham. She's the oldest living person. Well, I need to change this. She just turned 116. She took the place of another lady, a nun, Sister Lucas, who died at 116. Connie Tanaka was at 119. She died in April of 22. Before her, another woman from Japan died at 116. And before her, there was a woman, it's not on the sheet here, but there was a woman that was in Jamaica who was 122. We're living longer and longer and longer. And you might say, wow, Dave, that's interesting, but that's the exception, isn't it? Yeah, sort of. Here's the thing. If you'd have looked 15 years ago at the list of the oldest 100 people in the world, there was nary a person from the United States on it. Today, it's chock full of us. The people in the United States are living longer and longer. And you know this. You're the sandwich generation. Some of you have parents that are being taken care of by you, or you're managing their estates, or you're visiting them in nursing homes or assisted living facilities, and you've got kids that are still living with you too. That's why they call us the sandwich generation. But here's the thing: you can expect to live longer than you might think. Now, that doesn't mean everybody, but when you're planning your retirement, you can't just be arbitrary. Oh, 80 sounds good to me, or 85 sounds good to me. You have to plan for what might happen, not what you think might happen. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to dig into benefit basics, the strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. If you're single, going, wait a minute, Dave, what about me? Don't worry too much. All of Social Security was created for the single person. These are the offshoots. But if you're worried, hey, is there anything relevant to me? See that word taxes? Man, do you need to pay attention. Now, everybody does, but single people especially are just getting raked. And I know everybody, hey, aren't there no taxes on Social Security anymore? That is not true. There are taxes. There is a temporary discount. You get a deduction of $6,000, $12,000 for a couple for 2025, 2026 this year, and next year, 2027, and then it disappears. Also, but they're still taxing your Social Security if you fit certain parameters. I'll get into that in a little while. We'll also talk about why coordinating benefits is so critical. All right, basics of Social Security, how you get it. You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid into Social Security and your employer matched that. Now, if you're single, you already know the bad news. You didn't have an employer to pay the second half. You had to pay it completely yourself with zero discounts. Now, they use the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefits. Not the first 35 years you worked, not the last 35, not the middle 35, individually weighted years, prorated, and then the individual highest 35. Here's the reason this is so important. What if I don't have 35 years? What if I have 34? Here's why you may want to pay attention and figure out whether it makes sense for you to work another year to get that 35. Because when they're figuring out how much you get, they have to figure out what your average wage was. To do that, they take those 35 years, they prorate them, then take the largest 35 that you have, then they divide it by 35. And that's your average prorated income that determines how much you get from Social Security. Here's the problem. If I have 34 years, they're still going to prorate all those. They're going to add them all together. They're going to add 34, the 34 I have, because there aren't any others to pick from. And then they're still going to divide by 35. That division problem, if you start adding zeros to a division problem, it lowers the outcome dramatically. That's why this is so important. If you don't have 35 years, first off, you need to know that. We'll talk about that in a little while. But if you figured it out and you realize I don't have 35, I have 33, 32, what? Working a couple extra years to fill those in and give them numbers so they're not dividing with zeros, they're adding that income to it and then still dividing by 35 can make a huge difference in what you actually get over the rest of the course of your life. Now, once they've determined your benefit, you have to determine whether you qualify. Now, you need 40 credits to qualify for a full retirement age benefit. A retirement benefit only takes 20 credits to get disability, but we're not talking about disability tonight. So 40 credits is what you need. A credit is one quarter. One credit equals one quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. That this year you make at least $1,890 in earnings. So over four credits or 4 quarters, that still isn't even $8,000 for a full year. But if you made $30,000 in the first quarter and nothing in the second, third, or fourth quarter, you only earned one credit, not four, even if you exceeded the amount of money, 1,890, that you needed in that first quarter. Now, once you have that, by the way, that 1,890 has been prorated over the years. 1982, that was like $220. So it's gone up massively. But once you have those 40 credits, you have a retirement benefit. Are there any reductions or exclusions? Any way that that can be torn apart? Well, there used to be some big ones, but many of you heard about the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025. That changed this dramatically. So before that act, for decades, if you were a government worker, you had a military pension, you were a railroad employee with a pension, you were a state, city, local government with a pension, or a school employee with a pension, and you also had a Social Security benefit. Let me give you an example. Let's say I worked for the federal government for 30 years and have a nice pension, but I retired. And then, I got bored and I went back to work in the private sector and I put my 40 credits in. I got my 10 years, and now I have both my pension and a Social Security income because I qualified for both of them. But these two areas called the WEP and the GPO, the windfall elimination provision, and the government pension offset, were passed into law decades ago that ripped some of that away from you. The WEP in that situation where you were the government employee would have said, well, you don't have 31 years of paying into Social Security. Now, mind you, you only need 10 to qualify. But because you didn't have 31 and you have a government pension, and because both of these come from the government, we're going to reduce, we won't touch your pension. We can't do that, but we will reduce the amount you get from Social Security. Now, mind you, you paid the full amount. You didn't get a discount because you were a government employee. You paid everything into it, but they said, hey, sorry, that's double dipping. We're not going to pay you. Now, the GPO was even worse. The government pension offset, we call it, we used to call it the grumpy partner offset because this wouldn't have applied to me. Let's say I worked 40 years and earned a wonderful pension from the federal government. My wife, I've been married 49 years. My wife, um, she she worked. I'll just tell her she worked as a teacher. But when we started having children, she assured me when we had our first child that she was going to go back to work after her maternity leave. But as maternity leave ended, she could not see herself leaving that kid. She just couldn't do it. And so she stayed. She stayed. And we had more kids and more kids. And then eventually, the youngest one got settled in school enough that she was comfortable. And then she went back to work. Not because she had to, but at that point, because I think she was tired of me. So she wanted somebody else to talk to. But she went back to work, and eventually she worked for me. But here's the thing: in that circumstance, she didn't have anywhere near 35 years in her Social Security. She had enough to qualify. But here's what would have happened under the GPO. The GPO would have said, hey, because you don't have 35, we're going to reduce your Social Security. Well, she'll get her full Social Security. I'm sorry. Unless something happens to me and she inherits my pension. And then it would come back and it would assess her Social Security and say, because she didn't have 35 years, we're going to reduce it. Or listen to this, guys, eliminate it, take it away completely. Well, mind you, it wasn't a lot of money, but she earned every dime of it. Her and her employer paid for it. Why would she pay into it if she wasn't going to get it? So inherently, this was just unfair. And last year, the government came up with the Social Security Fairness Act and changed it. So if this affected you, you're getting that money back, at least till from up till now, back until December of 23. That's as far back as they were willing to go. Some people think that's a ripoff, but whatever it is the way it is. So moving forward, that's not an issue. But if this affected you, you should be due, if you haven't received it already, uh, that compensation back. But that's the Social Security Fairness Act. All right. How do you qualify? How does Social Security work? You pay in 6.2% of your income up to 184,500. Now, if you earn more than that, they stop collecting that money and it goes directly into your paycheck the following paycheck as long as you have income for that year, no matter how much you have. And then your employer matches that 6.2 for a total of 12.4%. That's a lot of money. That's 1/8 is 12.5. So it's essentially 1/8 of every paycheck you've ever earned. Every 8 years, they've taken an entire paycheck of yours and put it into Social Security. It's a lot of money. It adds up really quickly. In fact, Business Insider did a magazine or did a magazine article. It's probably about 5 years ago at this point. They did a math thing. They looked at an average couple. I think they were $50,000 each. That they added up all the money that they would have contributed between Social Security and Medicare, and over the course of their lifetime. And before they would have taken, or at 65, they would have contributed, listen to this, $742,000 is what the article said. Almost $750,000. This is a lot of money. Some of you are just saying, hey, can I just have that back? And I get it, but that's not the way it works. That is just not the way it works. Now, that 184,500 has been prorated, and it will keep being prorated. 2014, that was about $114,000. Now it's $184,070,000 more than that in a little more than 10 years. It's going up every year, and I think it's slated in the 2050s at some point to hit $1 million. A lot of people are saying it should be there already, but that's what's going on. Now, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. The money that goes in, listen to this, this is sort of interesting. The money that gets contributed this month out of your paycheck gets paid out next month to the people who are on Social Security. It has been that way since its inception. Money goes in and then pays out. Now, when they've had excess money, it goes into the trust fund, but they're still collecting the money that they're paying out this month for next month. It's been the way it's been, and it's worked wonderfully up to now. But I mean, think about this: in 1940, in 2000, or 1935 to 40, the amount of people who were older that were 65 and receiving benefits was so small that our parents' generation was, our parents and some of our grandparents' generation was paying in, and there were many more of them than were receiving. And then our parents were way more than our grandparents. And then we, baby boomers, soared way more than our parents. Every generation was successively bigger and bigger and bigger until now. Anybody know how many millennials there are? 77 million baby boomers, 81 million millennials. There's more of them, but not by much. At some point during the Reagan administration, there were 40 people paying in to Social Security for every single person receiving a benefit. That's just not the way it works anymore, which brings up this interesting and complex question about solvency. Is Social Security going to be okay? I'm going to give you a take on it that's probably very different than what you've heard on the internet. I would be surprised if you've heard what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you this is important to me. I've spent tons and tons of time researching this. Let me tell you how this works. 1983, an incredibly important year for Social Security and baby boomers. I say baby boomers. It's the year that Congress woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, baby boomers are going to break the system. What do we do?" It's the year that you got the letter. I don't know if you remember the letter, but in August of 1983, you got a letter. Now, I got one literally on the same day as my wife. I was fascinated that we had these letters in the mail from the Social Security Administration. We're like not even close to retirement. We weren't even thinking about it. Why are they sending us letters? Well, turns out the letter said something like this. Since its inception, Social Security full retirement age has always been 65. But if you're born after 1943, before 1954, guess what those are? They're called the beginning of baby boom. It's no longer 65, it's 66. And if you're born after 1954, for each year, add 2 more months. So in 1955, it would be 66 and 2 months, 56, 66 and 4 months, and so on until you reach birth year 1960. And then it's 66 and 12 months or 67. And for everybody after that, it's 67. Now, I was at the water cooler the next day and wasn't hot on the collar. I was worried about the letter. And I was talking about the letter and I was asking other people's comments about the letter because and don't misunderstand me, I wasn't upset per se that I lost a year of when I would be able to retire. I was concerned about how many more letters I was going to get before I turned 70. I thought for sure I would get more letters that, hey, we've revised this again, and now it's 68, now it's 69, and now it's 70. I just was sure that was going to happen. Turns out I never got another letter, ever got another letter. But I'm having a conversation at the water cooler, and somebody nearby was listening, and they said a sentence to me that I had never heard before, but I've heard lots and lots since. What are you even worried about Social Security? It's not going to be here when you retire. That was the first time I ever heard that. I have heard it so much since, it's crazy. Here's the thing, they were dead wrong. They were dead wrong. There are so many pessimists about Social Security out there that it's sort of crazy. But let me tell you why. Social Security is fully funded to 2035. We have, what, 9 more years? What happens after that? It's fully funded 83 cents on the dollar. So many people think that Social Security is going to be broke, but it isn't. It's funded enough to pay every benefit 83 cents on the dollar. It doesn't have enough to pay 100%. So it's a 17-cent problem, not an 83-cent problem, not a 100% problem. It's a 17-cent problem. So what are they going to do? And this is the interesting question. There are 4 basic proposals. These proposals have been around for more than a decade and a half. Some of them have been around for 25 years. Here's the first one: increase the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64.5. This no longer solves the problem. It helps, but it does not fix it. Here's number 2: increase the full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. This no longer fixes the problem. Here's the one that absolutely fixes the problem: increase the payroll tax. 6 years ago, the OMB did a study that said if they raised the payroll tax by 1 point, half a point to the employee, half a point to the employer, self-employed people would be paying an extra point. It would fix the problem for about the next 70 years. I don't know any of us. I mean, I hope there's talk about living that long, but I don't think that's going to happen. I doubt I will live 30 more years. So why would I care about 70 years? Here's the thing. This works. This fixes the problem. The problem is the longer they delay, every year they delay, it's more. They have to increase it more. So why wait? If this is inevitable, why wait? That's a really interesting question. The other one, the last one, and this absolutely fixes the problem, except it bankrupts our country, is reduce the benefits. What do I mean it bankrupts the country? If Social Security doesn't pay its obligation to the people who, like you and I, who have paid into it for 40 or more years, then it will have lost what's called the full faith and credit of the United States government. Will be worth nothing. They would never be able to sell a bond or anything else. They have to keep their promises. They can't not do that. It's impossible not to do it. So what are they going to do? I don't know. I don't know, but I know they're going to do something. I was at I was invited to I don't want to make a big deal about this, but it was a sort of an exclusive invitation. The 200 top advisors around the country were invited to this. It was in Coronado Bay, California, next to San Diego. It was beautiful, right on the water. One of the nicest resorts I've ever been at. This is not quite a year ago, April of 2025, and it was a pleasure to be there. Some of the best speakers I've ever seen. But they had these, just like I'm going to do this evening. They had Q&As, but they had these breakout sessions, and one of those sessions was listed as Social Security, what's happening, and what's the future. And I went. I don't have a choice. This is what I do. So I'm sitting really ready to hear what's going on, and I watched the moderator come in, and then there's four different panelists. The first one I recognize. He's a former. I've heard him speak before. He's a former director of the Social Security Administration. That's a big job. And then I don't know the next two, but the last one I didn't know, but he's introduced as a former director of the Social Security Administration, one from each party, Democrat and Republican, and they were smart guys. I watched this. I don't think my tongue was hanging out, but I was really impressed with everything they said. But at the end, they did a Q&A, and there wasn't a question in the room what the first question was going to be. Everybody knew it was going to be solvency. What's going to happen? How are they going to fix this problem? And both of them said the exact same thing. I don't know how it's going to get fixed, but it will get fixed. Well, shouldn't we be worried? No, it's going to get fixed. And they gave a bunch of reasons why, but they were incredibly confident about it. And these are guys with great political connections. They know what's going on. And then one of them explained, there's two things that I pulled out of this. One is, and I want you to hear this because I think it's important. One was, they reminded us that 5 years ago, in the middle of COVID, out of nowhere, our country found $4.5 trillion to do PPP loans and every other kind of supplement and pay to help people make it through an unexpected pandemic called COVID that many people say we way overspent. We didn't need to do that much, but they created it out of nothing. They borrowed it out of nothing, and they didn't hesitate. They did not hesitate to do it. They said the level of concern about COVID would be compared to a pebble in a pond compared with the concern about Social Security going broke. It can't happen. So how are they going to do it? They don't know, but they're absolutely confident that they're going to do it. Here's the other thing. There's a premise. Both of these guys talked about the mindset of Social Security. Social Security is so concerned about you not getting less this year than you got last year that if you were to get a Medicare increase in your premium and your cost of living adjustment on your Social Security benefit didn't cover the increase, guess what Social Security does as a policy? They reduce the increase on your Medicare so that you never get less than you got the year before because they know seniors can't deal with that. They're never going to pay you less. They're never going to cut your benefits. They can't do it. Are they going to borrow the money? I don't know. There's a bunch of different things they can do to fix this. They should do them all today, but they will do them eventually. Okay. How are your benefits determined? You get your FRA, your full retirement age benefit, at 66 or 67. If you take it early, as early as 62, you get less. You get 75%. Pretty much everybody knows this. If you delay, you get these wonderful DRCs, delayed retirement credits, 8% per year. It's actually two-thirds of 1% per month, but that adds up to 8% per year. They're not compounding, but they are stacking. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% equals 132%. The difference between taking your benefit at 62 and getting 75% and waiting till 70 and getting 132% is 177% more. It's like getting a full retirement age benefit and a 62-year-old benefit on top of that. It's incredibly huge. All right. Three distinct Social Security benefits. Your benefit, the retired workers benefit, that has nothing to do with anybody but you. It's based entirely on your work earnings history, and that's it. A spousal benefit. My spouse could have never worked a day in her life. She could have been a Russian bride that moved here a year ago and never worked, and she's still entitled to that benefit because of my contributions, not because of theirs. And widower, or survivor benefits depend entirely on the work history of the deceased worker, not on the surviving spouse. Okay. Bipartisan Budget Act 2015, I'm going to go through at lightning speed because 95% of this does not apply to us, but the 5% is so important I can't leave it. So in 2015, Congress changed Social Security by creating this Bipartisan Budget Act, where they changed Social Security for married couples and divorced spouses, setting up three distinct sets of rules based on when you were born. If you're single or you're a widow, this did not affect you at all. If you're born prior to May 1st, 1950, you're about to be 76 years old. If you haven't filed yet, you've made a huge mistake. I'm not going to cover this because it doesn't apply to us anymore. If you're born after May 1st, 1950, but before January 2nd, 1954, you just turned at least 72. So again, if you haven't filed, you've made a huge error. Go back and file immediately. But if you're born after January 2nd, 54, this does apply to you. What it's taken away is what's called voluntary suspension and the restricted application. So if you'd have come to me in 2015 before this act, I would have told you to file at 62 if you're a married couple. The bigger wage earner files at 62, the smaller wage earner, and then immediately suspends the benefit. So they go in, they fill out the forms to take it, but they immediately suspend it. So they don't actually get a benefit. Their own benefit is unaffected. It just keeps growing all the way to FRA, full retirement age. And then it keeps growing after that with those DRCs all the way to 70. But the spouse could go in the next day and file what was called a restricted application for only spousal benefits and start collecting immediately the spousal benefit, half of your spouse's benefit. And you can do that and keep collecting it all the way to your full retirement age, or let the DRCs collect on your own benefit all the way to 70 and then switch to your own benefit, which at that point should have been significantly higher. It was a great way to get either 4 or maybe even 8 years of additional benefits paid out to you that you wouldn't have been eligible for in any other way. And it made a huge difference. They've taken this all away. So why am I talking about it then? Because when they passed this law for baby boomers that were born after January 2nd, 54, they added a poison pill called deemed filing. Deemed filing takes away your ability to pick and choose what benefit you get. Now, when you go into Social Security, no matter what benefit you ask for, you're going to get the largest one available to you on that day. What's wrong with that? Well, in the long run, it might not be the best day to pick. It could be the worst day to pick. But that's the benefit you're going to get. And here's the problem. Once you take it, deemed filing says you're done. You can't switch. Because of that, you have to be absolutely certain that the day you file is the right day for you, because once you've done it, you've locked yourself in for the rest of your life. There's no going back. For you, timing strategies matter. All right, for spousal benefits. To qualify for a spousal benefit, you must have been married for at least one full year. If you've been married less than that, you don't qualify. But once you're married a full year, you qualify for the spousal benefit. Primary worker must have filed. So I've been married a long time. My wife and I'm waiting till 70 to file for my Social Security. My wife didn't want to wait, but she can't get the spousal benefit until I file. So the only benefit she's eligible for is her own benefit, which is way less than the spousal benefit. But so she can file and get that and then switch once I file, but not until then. Now, generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than one half of the primary worker's PIA. PIA stands for primary insurance amount. It's a long calculation that gets you to your full retirement age benefit. But let me just use it synonymously because they're very close. If your benefit is equal to or more in any way than one half of your spouse's benefit, you can't take a spousal benefit. You're going to take your benefit and your benefit alone. And once you take it, can't change. Here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age, $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for one half at her full retirement age. She would get $1,000. Pretty simple, right? Couple of caveats. If you file at your full retirement age, you get 100% of your benefit. But if you take it early as 62, you get less, you get 75%. But if you file a spousal benefit early, you get discounted even more, not 75%, but 70%. 70% of 50%. So in that scenario we just did, where John had $2,000 benefit, Jane would get half. At 62, she would get 70% of half. So if half is 1,000, she would get 700. Now, if you delay, you get these wonderful DRCs, the 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. If you delay a spousal benefit, you get nothing. There is no increase, no DRCs applied. You get nothing. Worse, this happens all the time. People think, oh, those wonderful delayed credits for waiting till 70, you get it's an extra 32%. Yeah, wonderful. But it's nothing, no increase on a spousal benefit. What happens, this happens a lot. People don't file at their full retirement age. And then the following year, they go to check to see what the increase is, and there isn't any. So they call Social Security and they're explained at that point, oh, no, there's no increase on delayed retirement, on divorced spouse, on spousal benefits. Sorry. There's a, well, can I backfile? Can I? No, you can backfile your own benefit 6 months for sure, oftentimes for a year, but you can only file a spousal benefit going forward. So you've literally just thrown that money away. There's no way to recover it. All right, survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, a surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, the benefit of the deceased. So you take your benefit or you can take their benefit, or 82.5% of the PIA of the deceased if the deceased filed early. Now, one of the reasons I spent a little time on solvency is because we're all getting brainwashed. It's sort of fascinating. If I wanted to get 1 million views, now we do really well. Lots of people. I've given this to over 100,000 people. We've we've done really well. But if I wanted to get a million views in the next week, all I would have to do is go and post something on YouTube that told you filing at 62 is the smartest thing since sliced bread and give you a few numbers and calculations why, none of which would make actual sense if you thought them through, but it would get millions of hits. Why? Because because we're afraid and because we want somebody to tell us that something that we think might be a bad idea is actually a good idea because it puts us in a position where we do it. Here's the reason why I react to that. That misinformation has pushed to the highest level that we've ever had. Last year, 40% of the American public chose to take their benefits at 62, at the earliest possible time, even though in most cases that's wrong. I'm not saying in all cases, but in most cases that's wrong. It's happened so much that the government has stepped in and said, look, that's 75%. If that's happened, we're going to bump it up for the widow or the widower to 82.5%. That's not a lot, but it's something. All right. Most common mistakes: higher wage earner files early and shortchanges survivor benefits. This happens all the time. All the time. Both delay past full retirement age, nobody claims a spousal benefit, literally just feeding money back into Social Security, not realizing they can't get that money back. All right, considerations for divorced individuals. To qualify for a divorced spouse benefit, you must have been married for 10 full years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties. You can't be married 5 years and divorced for 2 years and then remarried. That doesn't count. 10 full years and to the same person. No change in partners in the middle of the square dance. And you can't currently be married. If you divorce after 10 years of marriage and you remarry, you have spousal benefits after a year. You no longer have divorce spouse benefits. Here's the exception to that. If your current spouse, your new spouse, passes away, you now have those divorce spouse benefits available to you. Not at the same time. You can't do both at once. But if they're better, you can take those. And if you were to become divorced again, they're available to you on the previous divorce spouse that you had a 10-year marriage with. Same amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as you do for regular spousal benefits. There is only one difference between a spousal benefit and a divorced spouse benefit. And here it is. It's called the Independently Entitled Act for Divorced Plus Two. So if I have been, I'm telling you, 49 years of marriage with my wife, she can't get a spousal benefit until I file. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, that no longer applies. She could go and get it tomorrow, even though I haven't applied. That is the only difference between divorce spouse benefits and regular spousal benefits. That's it. Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced individuals. Not going to cover the first one. If you're born after May 1st, 1950, before January, you're already 76. File if you're born after May 1st, 50, but before January 2nd, 54, you're already 72. File if you're born after January 2nd, 54. Bad news. The restricted application is no longer available for you either. It's no different than the spousal benefit. But if you're older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as age 62, and then you can switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches their full retirement age. Listen to this. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses with 10-year histories. So if you're married multiple times, each time at least at least for 120 months, at least 10 years, then you have options. And Social Security is so generous here, they'll let you pick which one you want to do first and which one you want to do second, making it really easy to choose what's best for you now and what's best for you later. All right. Common questions we get from those who are divorced. Do divorce benefits affect their current spouse or other dependents? No. So if you had uh, two ex spouses that both had 10-year marriages and a current spouse, all of them qualify for the same benefit. Is my ex notified if I'm claiming under their record? No. Social Security, just like your doctor, has to abide by HIPAA. They can't release your medical information without your written permission. Neither can Social Security release any information about you financially to anyone without your written permission, with one exception. If you're a divorced spouse and you can prove you had a 10-year marriage with a marriage license and a final divorce decree showing at least a 10-year span, then they are bound to give you the information necessary, just the information necessary to determine whether you have a benefit that you qualify for that is in your best interest. Now, they'll give you the information, but they won't give you all the financial information. They won't tell you that, but they'll give you the information necessary so you can say, yeah, I want to take advantage of that. That's it. Okay. Uh, Widows and widowers. Okay. To qualify for or for widow benefits or survivor benefits, you must be 60 years old. This is the only this is the youngest you have the ability to get any kind of retirement benefit. Every other retirement benefit is at least 62. Widows and widowers can take it at age 60, but you must have remained unmarried from the time of your spouse's death until your 60th birthday. If you remarry even for a day, you no longer have these benefits. But you're married the day after your 60th birthday, and while you're married, you're still entitled to these benefits. You had to be married at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. Couple of exceptions, very few. Armed member of the armed service of the United States killed in line of duty, member of recognized law enforcement of the United States killed in line of duty, member as a full-time fireman killed in line of duty. Those are it. Other than that, you must have had a 9-year marriage prior to the death of your spouse. That's it. All right. I'm going to show you a quick case study. This is really about timing and why it's so important to have a plan about when you're filing. This is a widow. Her name is Jane John. Her husband never elected and died at age 64. Benefit on it at his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane is 5 years younger. She's 59 when John dies. She remains unmarried until her 60th birthday, so she qualifies. Jane estimated benefit on her own. This is her benefit, not John's benefit. She can't get until she's at least 62, but that's when it would be $1,197. I called the first option here file without thinking because it's what most of us do. Social Security tells us that the most common question that's asked is, how much can I get? People are looking for Social Security to tell them. They're not trying to figure that out on their own. The problem is Social Security is not allowed to give you advice. They'll tell you that, but they won't tell you that if you wait, you might get a better deal. You might have more money long term. You might have a much better long term outcome. They can't tell you that. All right. So she goes into Social Security. She says, how much can I get? They say, well, the only benefit available to you at 60 is the survivor benefit. You can't get your own until 62. So if you take it, it's not $2,150. If you're taking it at 60, it's 1537. She says, I'll take it. All right, we're going to do simple math here. So no cost of living adjustments or anything like that. We're going to assume she lives to 85. So it's 300 months, 25 years of payments of 1,537 long term over that course of 25 years. That equals $461,100. Not bad, right? Some people say strategy one is better. She says somebody tells her, wait a minute, you should wait until you're 62 and take your own benefit. Now, that's only 1,197 at 62, but guess what? At 67, you can switch to that survivor benefit, and it's no longer 1537, it's now $2,150. Guess what? That's more. That's when you switch. By doing that simple switch. Now, mind you, you didn't get money for 2 years from 60 to 62. So if you're not working, this might not be an option. But if you're working, making $40,000, $50,000 a year, add to that. But look at the difference here. It's almost $80,000 difference. 538,835 just for that simple change in strategy. Now, lots of people think that strategy two is better. Look, I can't afford to wait the 2 years, so I'm going to take the survivor benefit, but I'm going to have a plan. And the plan is to know that my benefit, which doesn't even start till 62, if I'm taking the survivor benefit, I don't have to take that. I have to switch, but I can switch at any time as long as it's more. Well, 1197 isn't more, but by the time I reach full retirement age, it's more. More importantly, I can wait until 70 and have it grow with those DRCs because survivor benefits don't get those, but your own benefit does. And if I wait until 70 and I switch, then it's $2,108. That's when I switch. By doing that, look at the difference here. Instead of 461,100, it's 563,904. Almost 500, almost $103,000 more just for having a plan and waiting. Now, look, I see people with not a ton of money. I see people with millions and millions and millions of dollars. I don't know any of them that can afford to just walk away from $100,000 in retirement. You just can't throw that kind of money away. You just have to have a plan and have it thought through. If you decide to take your Social Security at 62, 63, age 64, 65, for some of you at 66, and you earn, you continue to work, and you make more than $24,480, understand this: for every $2 over that $24,480, Social Security is going to take $1 of your benefit back. Let me put this in simple terms. You continue to work, you take your benefit at 62, you make $58,000, and your benefit is $2,000 a month. At the end of the year, you're going to file your taxes. The IRS is going to send a copy to Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam's going to send a letter to you, or Social Security is going to send a letter to you that says, hey, last year you broke the rule. Guess what? All of that $2,000 a month, that $24,000, you owe it back to us with interest. This is a horrible way to start your retirement and to start Social Security. If you are going to take it, you need to make sure that you're under that level. In the year that you turn FRA, full retirement age, if you make more than $65,160 before you take your benefit, then for every $3 over that, they're going to take $1 back. Now, if you have a if you take your bet, this happens a lot. People take their bet. Oh, I'm going to turn full retirement age in November. I'm going to start my benefit in January, right? You can do that. You cut a little out, but not much, and then you have this problem. Like, so if you've made that 65,160 before your birthday, you've got a problem. Now, if you make it after your birthday, you don't have a problem. If your birthday is in February or March, you probably don't have a problem. One way to be absolutely sure is to make sure you don't take your benefit before your birthday, or if you're still working, or wait until January of the following year. Now, if you've waited until your birthday before you take it, you can earn a bazillion dollars and there's no reduction in your benefits after your birthday, as long as you waited to take it till then. But if you earn that much money, or even a lot less, you're going to have to deal with taxes. Um, Taxes are a big deal. I don't know if I wish I could ask how many of you knew that Social Security was taxable before tonight's workshop. It's a serious, serious deal. It's serious for a couple reasons. You've already paid tax on Social Security. You paid tax once. There's a really, really good chance that very much, almost all of you are going to pay tax again. Well, a big chunk of you are going to pay tax again. Now, what do I mean you pay tax? Well, in 1935, when it was signed into law, Social Security was a tax-free benefit in retirement. It was always set up to be tax-free. That's how it was created. And you paid tax on your contributions. Think about that. The FICA contribution that you make, you paid tax on. You didn't get a deduction. I'm working on my taxes right now. I don't get a deduction for FICA. They don't say, oh, no, you paid tax on that. Yes, you pay tax on that. There's no deduction. And unfortunately, there's a really good chance you're going to pay tax again. Now, this is a problem. By the way, I told you earlier that 1983 was an awfully big year for Social Security. It's when Congress woke up to the fact that baby boomers were the problem. And they targeted us with extending our retirement age. But in that same act that they changed that, they changed this. This is when Social Security became taxable. Now, not so much to your grandparents in 1983, not so much to your parents. It was absolutely targeted towards you. I'll show you what I mean. By the way, some people say, hey, how complicated is this? Is it hard to figure out? Yeah, it's this is a 33-page document to explain how to figure out your taxes on Social Security. It comes with a nice worksheet. You can download it right from the IRS. Yeah, it's complex. In 1983, Congress designed this chart. This chart is provisional income. You might want to write that down, provisional income. And it explains how you get taxed on your Social Security. Let me go through it. I'll explain how it works, and then I'll explain what's included. If you're a single person filing your receiving Social Security, and you have $25,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. For most of us, that's 22 or 24%. For some of us, it's 35%. If you're married, doesn't matter how you're filing, jointly, separately, head of household, doesn't matter. If you're a married couple and both of your incomes add up to more than $32,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. 44,000 of provisional income means 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. By the way, there are 2,752 pages of Social Security law. 83 dedicated to taxes. There's this wonderful line in there. Sometimes late at night, I'll read it just to help me go to sleep. It says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. Isn't that nice? I mean, that's the most ridiculous line I've ever seen in anything, but they say it. Okay. By the way, it, it, I said we were targeted. Here's why. If your grandparents in 1983 made $44,000 of provisional income, they were amongst the 2% of the wealthiest people in retirement in our country. Think about it. That was a lot of money in 1983. Not so much today, but in 1983, that was a whopper. It wasn't meant for them. How do I know that? Because that number of 44,000, this chart is identical. It's never been changed. It's never been prorated a nickel. If it had been prorated, I wouldn't be talking about it. If that $44,000 was prorated at the exact same rate that Social Security has been prorated since 1983, it would be $142,000 of provisional income. I wouldn't be talking about it if that were the case, but it's not. All right, so let me tell you what's included in provisional income. All your W-2 income, all your gross income, 100% is counted. All your pensions, doesn't matter what kind of pension, military pension, disability pension, corporate pension, doesn't matter, any pension that you have, no exceptions, counts as provisional income. All wages, all interest income, all tax exempt interest income. Think Congress was trying to get everything? So you buy muni bonds, right? So you can avoid paying tax on them because they're not in many federally they're not taxable. In many states they're not taxable, but they count as provisional income. All 1099 income, 100% of it counts as provisional income. Some of you are very smart and savvy, and you know how to do real estate, how to use depreciation, how to take advantage of rental income that you can deduct things on and not have to pay. But 100% of your rental income, 100% of your Schedule E income with zero depreciation counts as provisional income, 100% of it. Maybe you own a business, a small business or a partnership or an LLC or a subchapter S corporation, and you earn income, 100% of that income counts as provisional income. Maybe you get a K1. That's a distribution income from that, oftentimes not taxable, but 100% of it counts as provisional income. Maybe you get a K1 for $25,000, but your business didn't pay you the 25. That's just your share of the profit. They kept the 25 because they need to expand the business or do a capital expenditure or hire employees, and they're going to use it and you'll get later tax free. Sorry, 100% of that counts as provisional income. Maybe you're like my daughter and son-in-law who lend the government money every year by taking no deductions. And then when they file their taxes, because they have lots of deductions, they get a big tax refund. They've used it for all sorts of things. I've seen them do car purchases and big vacations and home improvements. Doesn't matter what the reason is. I think it's a zero interest loan to the government. And I don't know why they do it for that reason, but it's easier for them to save that way. But 100% of that tax return in the year that you receive it counts as provisional income. All right, here are the interesting ones. Maybe you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 401a, a 457, a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP, any tax deferred account where you put money without paying tax on it into that account. It grows tax deferred, And then when you take it out, you pay tax. Simple concept. Most of us have some form of those, right? Here's the thing. When you take that money out, it counts 100% as provisional income. Now, I know some of you are going, wait a minute, Dave. My advisor told me pour money into those things because it's growing tax deferred. And when I take it out, I'll be retired and in a lower tax bracket. So I'll save a bunch of money that way, right? Well, look at the tax brackets and you tell me. Most of us in retirement are going to be at a 22 or a 24%. And we're not going to save any money like that. Now, don't misunderstand me. Some of you, that's not the case, but many of you are going to be at 22 or 24, and you will not have saved anything. In fact, you will have paid a bunch more. I'm not dissing 401ks or IRAs. They serve a great purpose. But when you put a dollar in 40 years ago and it multiplies or $1,000 multiplies to more like 128,000 over 40 years, and you were paying 15% back then, that was 150 bucks, and now you're paying 22% on 100, $22,000. That doesn't seem like such a good deal anymore. But don't misunderstand me. It's how we've built great wealth in our country. And I'm not dissing it. I just need you to understand tax wise, it may be a problem. Oh, yeah. 50%, listen to this, 50% of your Social Security income counts as provisional income. So if you're a married couple and one of you has $3,000 a month, the other has 2,000, that's 5,000, that's $60,000. 30,000 of that counts as provisional income before you get another nickel of income. Congress wanted you to be taxed so badly that they threw in half of your Social Security income to see if they could get you up to the level to pay that tax. All right. I'm a tad over, so I want to be careful here. This is the last case study I'm going to show you tonight. I think this is maybe the most important thing I'm going to talk about. This is about understanding planning in retirement and tax planning with Social Security. Here's a very typical client, 64 and 62, just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income. If they both file at age 62, they're starting retirement with just over $752,000 in IRAs and 401ks. That why do they want to retire early? They've got $750,000. Some of you are going, Dave, that's a lot of money. I hear you. But this couple with 752,000, a lot of money, right? Has a running out of money problem. And some of you are saying, that ain't enough. How can anybody think about retiring with only $750,000? I hear you. But this couple with only 752,000 has a serious tax problem too. 6% annual returns, we're going to say 3% inflation. They need just over $70,000 per year in inflation adjusted after tax income. We're going to assume they live to 86 and 89. All right, hold on. Let's look this through. If this couple retires at 62, they're walking away from $186,496 in Social Security income. And guys, they paid dearly for that. Over their lifetime, they paid to get every nickel of that. And they're walking away from it, and they need every nickel of it to survive retirement. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is a cash flow. This is the very couple we're talking about. The blue bars is their Social Security. Those orange bars, they're 401ks, they're IRAs. The graded line that you see, That's that $70,000 in inflation adjusted after tax income. At the end of the orange bars, that white space is nothing. It's where money needs to be, but it isn't. This couple, two-thirds of the way through retirement, not 2 years from, 2 years from the end of their lives, two-thirds of the way to the end of their lives in retirement, are dead broke. Remember when I said 46.1% of us pass away with less than enough to fund our own funeral? A couple of years into this, that was where this couple would be. They're done. They have spent it all, and there's nothing left. They're living on Social Security and Social Security alone. Now, they're not broke, but they're they're essentially broke. They have no savings. They have nothing. It's all gone. I'm going to show you a corrected case study. The only thing I'm going to do different is file their Social Security different. They're still going to retire at 62, but look at the difference. This is what planning can do. You tell me, which person would you want to be in retirement? That one or that one? Look at the difference here. Here, they're taking their Social Security, but that's not enough. They've got to take their 401ks to supplement. That orange money, they've never paid tax on. When they take it out, they're going to pay tax. They have no choice. But the blue money, we all pay tax already. Why would I put myself in a position to pay it twice? By doing it this way, I'm I'm saving a ton of money by getting a ton more, $186,000 extra in Social Security, and more than $100,000 less in taxes. Look, this kind of planning, it's not brain surgery. It is not. You have to go to Caltech to figure this out. But you do need to have a plan, and you do need to actually figure it out. It is critical to make sure. Look, when people come and ask for planning from me, they just want something that says, have you looked at the future and figured it out based on all the responsible odds and things that can happen, and give me some assurance that I'm not going to have this happen to me? That's what planning is. I cannot tell you how many people over the years have sat down with me and told me, "Oh yeah, I sat down with my advisor and they said, oh, don't worry about Social Security. You can take it anytime. It doesn't matter." It does matter. It does matter. And if you don't know it, anybody in their 70s that's already dealing with RMDs and taxes on Social Security, talk to them and see how they act about it. It's a huge deal. All right. In your statement, there is never going to be a COLA. They're never going to apply one. The only COLA information you're ever going to get is in October. They're going to tell us what the new one is going to be in January. But you need something to project out over the next 20 or 30 years so you have some idea of how to plan around that. It assumes that you're going to work to one of three static ages, 62, 70, or whatever your full retirement age is. Many of us don't retire at those dates. And maybe the most irritating thing for me, I've been married a long time. My wife and I, our lives are intertwined, not just being married, but financially. Our lives are intertwined completely. We have investment accounts jointly. We have bank accounts jointly. We have savings accounts jointly. We own cars jointly. We own a house jointly. We're together on everything. But Social Security looks at her and looks at me like we don't know each other, like we're two ships passing in the night. They will not coordinate her benefits with mine and tell me how to do that in a smart way. You have to do that to have any semblance that you're going to get a reasonable outcome in retirement. AARP says whether you're close to retiring or just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings record each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. This is a big deal. It's also important to be aware there some of those changes have statutes of limitations on them. If you just ignore them for a long time, you're not going to be able to change them at all. All right. Every time I do one of these workshops, I always offer a complimentary Social Security and tax analysis. I'm going to go through what that is, what's included, why we do it, and who's going to do it for you. So bear with me. I won't be a minute or two more, and then we'll do the Q&A. All right, so it'll cover break evens. It'll certainly do that. I don't think that's the most important thing, but it's done. It's easy to use and implement. It's point and click. It will look. It'll look at alternatives and shortfalls. What if Dave? I don't want to do it this way. Is there another alternative? Yes, we can do it this way. Let me show you what that looks like. What if I have a shortfall? How can I make that up? What can I do to improve that circumstance and make it better so I don't run out of money? It'll look at your retirement income, your cash flow, your tax analysis. Can I save money on taxes? If so, how? And what do I have to do? And how much is it going to save me? And what about my cash flow? It will look at an income plan. Some of you have income plans, some of you don't. Some of your income plans are using an arbitrary number. Some of them are a little more detailed than that. But we'll look at that. We'll tell you, are you overestimating how much income you can get from your assets safely in retirement? Are you underestimating? That happens surprisingly a lot too. And then what about Roth? The one thing I didn't mention in provisional income are Roths because they don't count. If you put money into a Roth or you do a Roth IRA or you convert IRAs into Roth, when you pull that money out in retirement, it doesn't count as provisional income. So should I be doing those, Dave? And if so, how much and when? And no offense, is it going to save me money or not? We'll do that for you. And then what about coordinating everything? So if you have a plan, but it doesn't look at Social Security, it doesn't look at taxes. And look, I meant maybe I emphasize those too much, but so many people come to me over the years and they have plans for their assets, but nobody's talked about taxes. Nobody's talked about Social Security, and they have a huge impact on those things. Have you looked at them? Have you looked at your non-qualified assets, your qualified assets, your IRAs, your 401ks, your pension plans, your life insurance, and then coordinated them all together? All right. If you haven't done this already, go to www.ssa.gov. That's the Social Security website, Social Security Administration website. You'll be able to download your own statement. Now, if you've set it up already, this will take 2 minutes. If you haven't set it up, it'll take you about 5 minutes to set it up. You'll get a login and a password that you use for the rest of your life. And then you'll be able to schedule. Well, you'll be able to do that in a second. I'm going to give you 2 options tonight for scheduling, and then I'm going to have our tech team put up the link and a QR code so that you have a choice on how to access these. Here's option 1. It's the whole kit and caboodle. It's the whole tax planning, the whole Social Security plan. It is going in depth for you and doing everything, and it's completely complimentary. Filing strategy, tax strategy, retirement asset, and Social Security coordination. 100% done for you. Now, some of you are like, Dave, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have money in 401ks and IRAs. I don't have those things that you listed in provisional income. I came to this thing tonight because I need some help timing of when it's best for me to file. I get it. I've written a workbook for you. It'll walk you through everything that you need to know, what strategy to use and how to use it. Everything is covered in it. We'll get that to you. You just choose option 2. All right. So option 1, Option two. Option one is the whole kit and caboodle, the whole thing. Option two is just the workbook. I said I would tell you who's going to do this tonight. I'm going to do that right now. And then I'll explain very briefly why we do this. So, look, I have asked a good friend of mine, somebody I care about a lot, Justin Ponce. Justin is an advisor in my firm. Justin, let me tell you a little about him, and then I'll tell you something I think is special. Justin has some credentials from the College of Financial Planning. He's a chartered retirement planning counselor. That's a designation from the College of Financial Planning. He also is an accredited portfolio management advisor. That's a designation about how to manage risk in assets, particularly in retirement. Excuse me. He also carries and holds the NSSA, that same designation that I have, the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. Now, on top of all of that, Justin has an MBA. Less than 5% of advisors in the country have MBAs. It is an incredible tool to help in retirement planning and in management. He also has a Series 66. That makes him a fiduciary. It's a designation from FINRA that requires now everybody in my company is a fiduciary advisor, that we're required to act in your best interest, not in ours. But we take that to heart. It means a lot. What does this mean to you? Look, Justin's attention to detail is second to none. He does comprehensive tax and Social Security planning and analysis. And that attention to detail, that ability to listen and dig in and figure out absolutely everything is critical to how he does planning. We're offering that to you on a complimentary basis tonight. It is incredibly valuable. You're going to enjoy him. I'm going to ask our tech team to put the link up in the chat, put the QR code up as well, so that you can dig in. Again, meeting with Justin is option one, complimentary. Option two is the workbook. I told you I would tell you why we do this. I'm going to do that really quickly. I'll use a quick story. I'm a Costco fanatic. I love Costco. It's a little cheaper. I don't know if it's that much cheaper. It is. You have to buy a little in bulk. Now, some of you live in parts of the country that Costco doesn't exist, but you have Sam's Club or BJ's Wholesale or something like that. But I love going into Costco, and I push my wife to do it on the weekends, on Saturdays, because if you go into Costco on a Saturday, it is chunk full of people. But the other thing it's chunk full of is these people at every nook and cranny of the store, cooking, frying, microwaving, something I've never tried or heard of. And I like to try stuff. My wife and I have a science to it. She doesn't even look to see what it is anymore. She just looks at me. And if I get a big, huge smile on my face when I try something, she says, okay, we'll take one. And if I nudge her, that means two. But I like to try stuff before I buy stuff. That's exactly what we do here. I have built my entire registered investment advisory firm on the premise that if you see unbelievable planning, if you see in-depth planning at a level that you didn't even guess existed, there's a really good chance you're going to want more. That's it. That's the trick. We're never going to twist your arm or force you to do something, but we believe that you will recognize it when you see it, and you'll want more. Look, there was this famous actor. I don't know how famous he was, but I used to be a movie buff. I haven't seen a movie I liked in a long time. But back in the 70s, there was this movie called The Paper Chase. I'm sure some of you have seen it. And the actor that played Professor Kingsley, who was the contract law professor, who was old and interesting. Um, I'm sorry, I'm just going to answer a question. Somebody's asking, how do I choose option one or two? Option one is just pick option one, fill in your information, and you don't scan for the workbook. It's going to come to you if you pick option two. Um, it, it, this Professor Kingsley guy was hard. He was a hard guy, and he was in the movie, and then he was in the TV show, and he sort of was what that revolved around, other than this one student. But in the 80s, he had stopped acting and he started doing commercials. And he had this pretty, pretty popular commercial that people saw. And it was him saying in his deep English accent, "We get business the old fashioned way. We earn it." That's what this is. I'm trying to show you something that is so good that you go, wow, maybe we need more. That's a whole lot better than what I've gotten in the past. Maybe we should talk. That's it. I'm so confident that when you meet with Justin, you're going to be that impressed that we're willing to do a whole lot of work. This is a whole lot of work so that you can see it. Okay. All right. Let's open up the Q&A, and I'll ask our tech team to pull up some questions, and we will get started. Thanks for hanging with me. I don't think we've lost. I guess we lost one person. Okay, Susan. Thanks for your question. Is the Social Security benefit of a widow is greater than that of her late husband? Should she continue to receive her own, or does she need to contact Social Security? Well, if the widow benefit is larger, interesting, Susan. It doesn't have the widow benefit doesn't have to be larger. You can switch to it whether it's larger or not, but you can't get both benefits at once. So you either take one or the other. But if your widow benefit, your survivor benefit is larger, you just call and switch. Why wouldn't you? It's bigger, so take it. And then surprisingly, your own benefit will start growing if you're not full retirement age yet. Even if you are, it would start with those DRCs. And then maybe it's full retirement age or at 70. You could switch if that's bigger for you and it makes more sense then. Great question. But yeah, absolutely. All right, next question. All right, Allison, somebody's asking if you can pick both options. You're going to get both the book. You're going to get the book if you pick Meeting with Justin either way. It's just he's probably going to do it all for you. All right, this is Allison. I'm turning 62 in May. I just applied for Social Security. I retired in September from the New York City Department of Ed. Decided to collect now and invest it. Okay, Allison. As long as you're not working, earning an income, that might make sense. I get it. If you are working though, then you have to be worried about the earnings test because you're not full retirement age yet. But I totally get it. I don't know that in the long run. Look, if you're going to live to be 90, I don't know that you can beat the 8% that you're going to get when you start adding it up after your full retirement age. I could do the math for you and show you that, but ultimately, I think it would be very hard because it's not a one-time 8% increase. It's an 8% for every paycheck you get from Social Security for the rest of your life. Allison says she's single. Okay. All right. How do you earn 40 points to collect? A point is 1 quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, where you earned at least $1,880 or $1,860 this year. So that equals 1 point, but that's prorated. So 40 years ago, that was like $220 in a quarter, not very much. And that quarter is spread out, but you need 40 of those or 10 full years of work history. Doesn't have to be in a year. It could be spread out over 40 years. That's how you get that. Great question. All right. Sandy, I started taking my Social Security at 62, and my husband's recommendation, where he calculated it, would take 10 years to catch up to make you for my waiting until I turned 65. Yeah, that's probably correct. The break even is often somewhere between 77 and 80. So, yeah, I get it. Here's the problem: if you lived to be 90, you would have made a lot more money waiting. But I understand. I'm not saying it's, look, in some cases it makes sense, but I would rarely recommend, well, hold on. Husbands and wives, I'd rarely recommend both waiting. But if you have a substantial amount, waiting can make a big difference, particularly with people living as long as they do at this point. Great question. All right, next question. Here we go. Replying to Susan, my husband was retired military, so I will receive survivor benefits. Oh, I got you, from the military. Totally get it. Okay. Lisa, so would my husband get survivor benefits if he is not yet eligible for Social Security? Yeah, he would, starting at 60, but not before that. Great question. I'm 62, working full time, widowed 1 year. He made more money than me. Should I be looking into possible claiming now or waiting until what age? Well, I can't tell you what age, but I would definitely look into taking the survivor benefit. You don't have to, it's not an either or. You can take that one. You just can't take them both at the same time. That would allow your own benefit to grow and grow and grow all the way to 70 if you want. We'd be able to figure out whether or not it was going to be bigger at that point or not. Now, so you know, at 62, the survivor benefit is still growing all the way to uh, your husband's FRA, full retirement age. And then you'll get the maximum amount at your full retirement age. If you're 62 now, that means it's 67. So at 67, you would get the maximum amount in that benefit. And it might be that it makes more sense to wait, might make sense more to take yours and hold off on that one. That's if you have other assets, that's definitely a just a meeting. If not, the workbook will walk you through so you know. All right, great question. These are great questions tonight. All right, Deanna. So if you don't file at 62 and you wait until full retirement age, or say 66, wouldn't you be forfeiting all that money between the age of 62 and 68 just to get a higher payment later? Yeah, that is exactly what you're doing. It's just that payment after about 78 or so is going to more than break even for you long term, and then for the rest of your life. I need you guys to think about this. One of the biggest enemies you have in retirement is inflation. Taking money early at a discount when inflation is such a big problem can absolutely cause you great harm. You need to have a plan around that. That's why we talk about it. Okay. Thanks for the question. Next question. Ella, if was collecting disability Social Security before my age 60, married more than 10 years, husband died of asbestos, can I get the highest Social Security? I'm now collecting Social Security and I'm retiring and 69 years old. How do I know what benefit I'm getting, mine or my husband's? Well, you're likely getting your own retirement benefit unless you have switched to a survivor benefit. Survivor benefits don't happen automatically. You have to apply for them. My guess is, and I don't know, Ella, if he was collecting, but the answer is when he collected, was he getting more than you are right now? Because if he is, you're definitely not getting that. You should get his full FRA benefit, and you should have gotten that as early as your full retirement age at 66. So the answer is, yeah, I would definitely look into it. You probably need to switch. Thanks for the question. Okay. Will we have access to replay or recording of this? No recording, but you can play. Look, you can rewind it right now and replay it, or you can use the link that you joined in tonight. It'll be up probably for the rest of the night and tomorrow. We don't keep them up because we have constantly have all sorts of different workshops going, and it gets very confusing if they're all up. People wind up at the wrong one. So if you want to use that link, you can use it later tonight. You can use it tomorrow morning, and then pretty much after that, it's going to be over. You need to go to one of our newer workshops. But yeah, it's available to you. Thanks for the question. All right, is income from the WC death provisional income? So I'm not exactly sure. Let me tell you what I think you're asking. Um, Provisional income is earned income or investment income. It is not inherited income. So if somebody dies and you inherit some money, that is not provisional income. But pretty much everything else is. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Next question. How do you choose option one or two? Do I scan for the workbook? Yeah, you just, it's going to, well, if you log in, it's going to ask you for, it's going to ask you some information and it'll ask you to choose option one or option two. If you choose option one, you're going to schedule an appointment with Justin and you'll get a workbook, or you schedule two and you'll just get the work. Okay, Susan, can you pick both options? Also, my husband is deceased, so I can't answer the question about his age. Um, yeah, I say so in the question there. That's an interesting tech. How do you want that handled? I don't I want to defer to you. I'm assuming you just put in I think it's asking for a current age. And if he's deceased, there wouldn't be one. So you may have hit married, and you should have probably should have hit a single option because you're a widow, um, and that's probably how to answer that question. And the answer is you can't pick both options; it's one or two. Okay. Oh, hold on. Tech has something. Oh no, they don't. Yes, my tech team says never been asked that question before. I don't know the answer either, but good enough. Okay. Angel. So if age 76 and still working, making approximately 46K, is the income and Social Security income taxed? Any incentives to stop working? Yeah, there could be, but the answer is yes. There's no age limit to the tax. It'll tax you until you're 140. Uh, there is no issue there. If you're making 46,000, you've already exceeded the minimum and Social Security is going to be added to that, you're definitely going to pay tax on Social Security. So yeah, there could possibly be reasons not to, but it's got to be weighed, Angel. So it's one of those things that's definitely it definitely requires some research and some some planning there. Okay, Mary, I plan to take Social Security in August of 26. Will my income from 126 to 826 be calculated in my benefit? Yeah, technically, the answer is yes. Um, but it doesn't mean that it will actually affect it. So your income for this year has to exceed the lowest income year that you have after proration. Since I look at a year like 1982, and 25,000 then is prorated to almost 125,000 today. Not quite. It's like 117. So if you're trying to replace that year, if that's your lowest year, you're going to have to earn quite a bit this year in between January and August to do that. But you might have years that are lower, and absolutely it will be adding to it and fitting into that. So the answer is yes. All right. Next question. Kim, I'll be 66 in May. Still working. I did not retire yet. Did I mess up by not retiring and taking Social Security at 65? No, no, absolutely not. You're still working. So taking it while you're working before your FRA, and if you're turning 66, if this is your year, you're born in 66, you're born in 1960, your FRA is 67. So you would still be subject to the earnings test. So if you're making more than about 28,500, you're going to pay some of that back if you take your Social Security, maybe all of it back. Yeah, I don't think you've made a mistake. I think you're right on point to not do that, at least until your FRA, your age 67. But you don't have long, just another year and a couple of months. Great question. All right. Is it true that you can work as much as you want after 70 if your income taxed after 70? Yeah. So no, your income is taxed after 70 and you can work as much as you want. There's no reduction after 67 for your Social Security, but there is taxes and nobody escapes the tax if they're making money. So that's the whole provisional income thing. That's why we ask people to meet with Justin, because if you've got assets, you're gonna. I mean, you need some planning. But the answer is, it's not true. If you're 70 years old, you're still going to get taxed on your Social Security if you make too much money. I'm 70 in April of 2026. Congratulations. um, uh, I'm trying to remember. Oh, is it true that you can work as much as you want after 70? I see. Is your income taxed? Yeah, it still is. So I get it. You won't lose any of your Social Security because of it, but you will still pay tax, and you should have a plan around that. Okay, Angel, my mom is 77, dad is 72, parents divorced after 12 years of marriage. Mom's Social Security is low, but dad's is still working part time. Can she apply for some of his and maybe increase her SSI? Mom is 77, and he has now. She could apply and get, and if it depends, I don't know how much his income was, but if half of his benefit is more than her benefit, then she can apply now. She's been divorced more than 2 years. She can apply now and get the divorced spouse benefit that's available to her. The question is it worth it? I don't know without knowing a whole lot more details about them in terms of income and stuff. But the answer is, yeah, she's qualified. Is it enough? And I won't know that without digging in. Uh, Lisa, so thank you very much. Have to jump off. I totally understand, Lisa. I think you're the last question anyway, but I appreciate it. All right. Okay, that is the last question. So I'm going to thank you all. What a joy it's been to do this with you this evening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your great questions. I'm going to wish you all a great night, a wonderful planning, and may you all have a wonderful, wonderful retirement. Thanks again. Goodbye to everybody. Goodbye.